business meeting of the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees. Everyone, please rise for the singing of the national anthem. Pledge allegiance.
Okay.
And yeah, Aaron will take that. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could have the reading of the mission and vision, please.
Richmond Community Schools guides students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Vision statement of the Richmond Community Schools is a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2, celebrations. Dr. Rex.
President Weber, trustees, I'm going to ask that Mrs. Hazelbaker joins us here at the podium to recognize our amazing staff member and personnel member that we are identifying this evening.
Good evening. I would like to introduce our test intermediate school teacher, Jessica Wilburn. Mrs. Wilburn has been selected by the Indiana Department of Education for Teacher Leadership Week. I'm going to have her hop up here, answer any questions you guys may have. Does anyone have any questions?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about what this boot camp is.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Teacher Leader Boot Camp is put on through the Department of Education for the state of Indiana. And so we have met over the course of the school year, over a total of 6 meetings to study Chicago University's 5 impacts on learning. And then as part of that, we do an action research project for that we will then present at the last meeting. The first meeting and the last meeting were in person in Indianapolis. The rest were held virtually to kind of talk through some research and meet with our odds or groups.
So the presentation is just to the group that you're working with?
Yeah, just with it'll be with there are 50 educators chosen across the state of Indiana. And then there are 10 groups, so a mentor for each group, so a total of 60 participants. And we will present to those people at the final meeting.
Can you give us a summary or a quick peek at what your action plan is or what this will be?
So the area that I felt like I had the most room to grow as an educator was in communicating with parents. And that's something that as teachers is always a little bit more challenging. And so I conducted a survey of the parents of the students in my homeroom class about would they like to have regular weekly or monthly or contact, and how would they like to have that contact? And then I've been reaching out through email and phone was mostly what I got from them, and seeing if that has an effect on overall student grades. And so I'm about, 12 weeks in, I think, of making weekly phone calls and sending emails out and tracking completion of work and achievement on their classroom tests. And then I'll compare that also with their fall NWEA data to their spring NWEA data and see if for those students whose parents chose to participate, if that had any kind of real effect on how their kids learned over the course of the year.
I would almost like to see the presentation myself.
Thank
Or at least have some kind of report.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've learned a lot about just how to communicate with parents and how it can be just a quick thing each week that I went into it worried that I would struggle to keep up with it, struggle to maintain it. And there have been rough weeks with with COVID happening and being out here or there, but for the most part, it has not been that much added stress. And of course, I only have about a third of the class that I'm doing that with whose parents returned surveys and said that they wanted to have that kind of contact.
I'd say thank you for your commitment, and it sounds like this is extra work. The boot camp is an additional to what, everything else you're doing, so thank you for putting in that time and that effort.
And so if I submit your name for the Indiana State School Boards Association's fall conference to do a presentation.
Maybe.
All right.
I won't say no right away.
Ms. Winburn, I definitely, as school superintendent, commend you for having the humility to continue to improve upon your craft as an educator and not remain settled or content with where you are, but yet trying to strive for more and selflessly trying to serve not only the students, but also folks that stand and support students, their parents. And so I'm sure that those parents definitely appreciate the conversation. I'm sure, as I used to when I was a classroom teacher, when I'd call home, sometimes the response was, "What did he do now?" Or "What did she do now?" And when you're there to just share positivity, or you saw the light bulb go off for the parents, that's powerful. And so I commend you and thank you.
It's Wilburn, is that correct?
It is.
Okay, yeah, looks like we had a
There's a typo.
typo, yeah. So I heard
I get that a lot.
I heard Ms. Hazelbaker say Wilburn, and I went, oh wait, okay, yeah. So apologies
It's okay.
and thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
For coming this evening. All right, moving on to item 3, return to in-person learning plan. Dr. Ray.
President Weber, trustees, I'm going to ask that our assistant superintendent, this is Jennifer O'Brien, who has coordinated for some time now the return to in-person instruction plan, is our district specialist with COVID-19. Ms. O'Brien.
The Indiana Department of Health released new COVID-19 guidance for schools on February 17th, 2022, that included an end to contact tracing and quarantines for students exposed to COVID-19. Beginning February 23rd, schools will no longer be required to quarantine students who have been exposed to a positive COVID-19 case, regardless of vaccination status or whether the school has a mask mandate. Schools will also no longer need to contact, trace, or report cases to the Indiana Department of Health. Those who test positive for COVID should isolate for 5 days and may return on day 6 if their symptoms are improving and they've been fever-free for 24 hours without the use of medication. Masks are now optional at Richmond Community Schools. Please note that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, federal mask mandate or federal mask requirement on public transportation, including school buses, is still in effect. At this time, we'll allow for public commentary.
Thank you.
I have several. Megan Heindel.
So they are optional? Do I need it? It's gonna be a hard left from where we were just at.
Oh, this is open commentary, not signed up commentary. So this will be separate from,
Right.
okay.
But
So you have we have
our
a signed
first
up as
one
well?
is for mask.
Okay.
Yeah, we have.
And so I have the separate. So this is for the mask.
Thank
She is much more
Yeah.
organized.
Thank you.
So Megan's first, but she
Yeah, I'm
still
sorry. Now.
wants to.
Well,
Would you like
I
to?
mean, if it's actually open for discussion and there's not been a decision already made, I will.
Okay,
come
to
up
the
and
podium.
speak.
Yeah, if you can give your name and your district, and then if you'd please come to the podium.
Sure.
What I've written down here.
Megan Heindel. I was here in August. I called in August, I emailed in August, I commented in August, or I came to the board meeting, like I said, in August. And nobody reached back out to me regarding the mask issue. I had an issue with it back then. Now we're supposed to have open discussions, so I'm a little bit more fired up because I didn't hear back, so. Should I go on? Are they optional, or should I go ahead with my
Well,
spiel?
So, sorry, just, I mean, I guess typically we don't respond, but I think because of your question, I'm assuming there are other people. So the plan that you just read, Ms. O'Brien, is the plan that we will then be voting on, correct?
Correct.
Is that, so the plan that we will all be voting on
I see.
is to be masks optional. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Well, they got rid of the
Where-
first 2 pages, didn't they?
Alright. I guess then I'll just start right here in the middle because I'm guessing that there's going to be some people that are on the opposite end of the spectrum of me. Okay, so let's just start with a super obvious one. Sporting events. Like, do I even need to say more about this mask mandate with sporting events? You think these crazy kids in the classroom are going to be spreading around COVID like crazy, more than sweating, spitting, heavy breathing, children rubbing up against each other? That's crazy, and it makes no sense. Another thing that I noticed was people had this idea that COVID's so dangerous that masking should only be required for education. Shopping, not restaurants, not playing with their friends, just where they need to socialize and learn. That's crazy. And then another, they work so well that there's no discernible difference, RCS words, between unmasked and masked schools. So, you know, when you have that, why not err on the side of freedom? The thing is, they should be optional. Anybody in favor of masking, we're not taking away your right to mask your kids. What is happening on the opposite end is the kids don't have an option to take their masks off. What about the children that are learning how to speak? What about the children that, how much of our social cues are not social, not verbal, right? Facial expressions, this all matters. And people saying, oh, it's not a big deal, it's a piece of cloth, that's crap and everybody knows it. The kids are not in danger. They never have been. We know the cloth masks don't work. They never have. And all of this change and all of the guidelines like the quarantine and the contact tracing, that's changing because we're finding new evidence. Like if people haven't evolved their way of thinking since the beginning of this pandemic, they're absolutely absurd. They should be optional. They should be optional. And if you feel so strongly that you should put masks on your kids, then do it. But it should absolutely not be required, especially with all the other logical fallacies whenever it comes to education and sports and everything else. Like every parent in here has a right to be frustrated that their kids have still been wearing masks when we've seen that not practiced across the board by everybody. So there we go. That's it.
Thank you.
Daniel Longworth.
I never really, never expected to be the kind of parent that would come up and speak at things like this. And I've never expected to be the kind of parent that would tell my kids to go against the rules and do not comply. However, wearing masks is something that I feel strongly about not making them do. Everybody should have their own personal rights. And I feel that forcing them not only forces them to try to give up their own personal rights to authority and tries to teach them that they should do that at all times, but it also abuses them and makes them more fearful, perpetuates the fear that is put out there. COVID's not going away. I don't believe it's actually ever going to go away. It's going to be like the flu eventually. Yes, it's worse than the flu. But we really need to have courage, teach our kids courage, and actually just move forward and make our kids get normalized to the reality of the world and what it is today and just not be scared of everything anymore. I mean, a lot of the things I was going to say, she's already covered. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. I don't need to say that. But that's really what it is. You know, it really is teaching them fear. And I don't want my kids to be afraid anymore. I've tried to do a good job of teaching them not to be fearful anymore. And I think they're onto that. But I feel like that's just what we're doing to everybody. And we need to just take it away and get rid of it. And like she said, everywhere else is making them optional. Sporting events. You saw all the celebrities at the Super Bowl that were unmasked. It's like nobody actually believes any of this stuff actually matters. Like unless they were following like a doctor, the PPE protocols where you're using thousands of masks, the number of kids in your school, thousands of masks per day, actually taking a mask off like after every single time they leave a room, washing their hands constantly. Because they're kids. They're going to be constantly messing with things. They're not like doctors who've been taught the right protocols and also have the gumption to like actually follow them. They're kids. They're not going to just follow all of that stuff. So it's going to get on everything and then be transferred. Like most of the kids already, my kids tell me I was supposed to say which school district, dentist and RCS. I've got 2 kids that are in school. They don't really take it seriously in the first place right now. Some teachers without a mask, the kids tell me that a teacher is like not having a mask, but going, and the other kids are going to them like this right back. It's like they're not doing it anyway. So like, what's it matter? You know, like, I really don't want them to be forced to wear a mask anymore. And it's probably going to get to the point if they were to wear a mask. I've been thinking for a long time with all this stuff, they may need to be moved to a different school district. And I can actually handle doing that. I know some people like wouldn't have the ability because of constraints with buses or time with work and stuff. But I can't stand having them to continue to be in a place where they're going to be forced. I want them to know what their personal rights are and to stand up for their own rights.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm from Northeastern School District, but I pastor in town, run the Hunger Relief Center. So we serve a lot of communities involved with a lot of different families. And just here as a concerned citizen, I'm 100% for anyone wants to wear a mask, absolutely. But what's happened here in this district and even in our own district is we've had our rights violated. According to the FDA, and you can look this up, the Food and Drug Administration, Section 201H, a mask is a medical device. A mask is a medical device. If you force me to put one on, you are practicing medicine without a license in the state of Indiana, and that is a felony. And so for us as concerned citizens, we want our people to be able to breathe and choose what they put over their faces. As a pastor, this body here is a temple of God. I choose what I put over, what I allow into my body. If I cover my face, I'm not allowed to breathe fresh air. If someone else chooses to put a mask on, I respect that. I respect that in my congregation. But I believe the best policy is for everyone to make that choice for themselves. And one of the things I want to bring to the table is just common sense. Treat COVID-19 like you would any other flu. Stay home if you're sick. If you have symptoms, stay home. Because what's happening is we're living in a society, and I made this for you guys. We need to really stop spreading hypochondria. And that means that people can get overly, excessively fearful about getting sick. And if you've ever watched the movie What About Bob? It's a mental illness. And I can see that some people take it to such an extreme that it becomes a sickness and damaging not only to our physical well-being, because when you're not able to breathe, I was just in the hospital recently. That's a cause of bacterial pneumonia. We want our kids to breathe, and we don't want them living under this fear of getting sick or getting other people sick. Telling children you're going to kill your grandmother because you're not wearing a mask, that is child abuse. And so I would encourage this board from this point forward to never consider, even if the health commissioner, the governor, they can pass mandates. Mandates are not laws. And if there is an unconstitutional mandate that comes down, you have been elected to disregard any command that comes down, any mandate that comes down from the federal government, from the state government, that goes against our constitutional rights. And that's what has happened by forcing people to put on a mask. It's against their religious rights and their constitutional rights. So I just wanted to come and share that on behalf of my congregation and the people that I am accountable to. Thank you.
James Freiberger.
Alrighty, salutations. As you all may know, I'm the student body president of Richmond High School. I'm one of the founders of the Peace and Advocacy Council, and today I am here in representation of, according to the New York Times, 937,000 people were dead from COVID. And I'm here to represent all of the families who have to deal with that loss. And I'm here in advocacy of the continued mask mandate because of COVID, which is an ever-existing, still continuing public health crisis, and I'm about to tell you why. The first thing I would like to mention is it is true that in Wayne County, COVID rates are going down. This is what I believe to be in response of Omicron running its course throughout pretty much a very good population of Wayne County. However, it is during times of COVID recession that it is most important to be vigilant about these precautionary measures. We need to subdue it where it's at right now. We cannot let it go spike back up. If we want this to ever end, we need to remain vigilant. Let's see. On that note, I'm going to bring up some potential counter arguments to this because there exists some. For example, it is true that maybe, it is our personal decision to wear a mask if we want to protect ourselves. Except that's not how it works. The mask exists to protect others. It is an instrument to protect the lives of others. I don't want to be so as conceited and selfish as to place such little value on the lives of others. Some may bring up certain statistics in counties that have a lot lower mask usage, like Preble County, for instance. It is true that their COVID rates are far lower than Wayne County's, and they infamously don't wear masks that much. Except their student enrollment is like literally half of what we have in Wayne County, 2,228 compared to 4,050. The way viruses work, populations that are more, I guess you could say, I forgot the term. Basically, populations that are more dense. There we go, dense. Viruses can spread their dense populations a lot quicker. Of course, Richmond High School, which has like over 1,000 kids who are all constantly near each other, are still going to, have higher COVID statistics. That's just a given. That's why, once again, we need to remain more vigilant. Let's talk about the 3 basic constitutional tenets of freedom. Let's talk about the right to life, the freedom of life. I believe that's violated when others don't take these precautionary measures and actively serve as a public health risk to me and others. What about liberty? Well, I believe that the covenant placed on liberty from the prolongment of COVID itself, I don't believe that's supporting liberty in any sense. The continuous restrictions that have to be placed in protection of our public health. Or what about the pursuit of happiness? I can't pursue happiness in a world where I go to school and there's not the proper public health precautions being taken to protect my safety. And also, listen, every week I try to visit my grandma who's about 100 years old. It's not just about the students as well, it's about the people who are around. If my grandma got COVID, she's going to die. I mean, she's literally almost 100. And I want to still be able to have, the assurance that I can visit her without thinking that COVID's just going to start spiking up again within our school. I mean, really. Now, of course, let me bring this to the status. We're all really just concerned about education. This is a school board, after all. What really is going to benefit my education the most? Some may argue that the very minor inconvenience of having a mask on is a bit of a hindrance to education. But you know what isn't good for my education? My grandma being dead. No, that's not good for education. Or, I can't tell you how many times I've heard my friends speak of the people they've lost to COVID, their grandparents, their uncles. It's horrible. When are we going to stop fretting on the lives of others for what is simply a minor inconvenience? We must remain vigilant if we wish to put an end to this. And with that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emily Christian.
I just want to be as practical as possible. So I have a hypothetical that's currently hypothetical, but likely going to become a real possibility. What about the situation if a teacher gets sick, whether it's COVID or any other highly communicable disease, doesn't matter what it is. We're not going to be wearing masks, so potentially no one in the class has masks on. We're not contact tracing. I want to know who's going to be jumping at the chance to sub in that classroom. We're already very low on subs. We are stretched very thin. Oh, I was supposed to say where I'm from. I have 3 children in RCS. I also am a para in RCS, so I get to do all the things that we get stretched thin for around in here. We all band together and fill in for one another when somebody's gone. But how long can we survive being open when people are getting sick and are out? So, being practical as I am, I'm wondering if some of these fine people out here are going to be jumping up to apply to be subs in our schools. They seem to know a whole lot about education. I want to see that confidence at work.
Underwood,
All right, come on, let's take it on.
Thank you.
Jamie Perez. Sorry, I can't read the last
one. So my name is Jaime Presberdunio. I am a senior at RHS and a member of the Peace and Advocacy Council. Friend Jimmy over in the crowd. I do want to point out that, the school board, you guys aren't committing a felony. Medical masks have an emergency exemption from the FDA. It's literally on their website. It's exempt. You guys are fine. I would also like to note that there seems to be quite an irresponsibility in advocating for these masks be optional. I had all my thoughts in my mind, I'm losing my train of thought.
It's easy to do talking in the public, so just take a deep breath.
Yeah, take a breath.
Gather your thoughts.
Relax.
So I would like to point out that there is a difference between sporting events, going out places, being with friends, socializing out on your own free time, and having to be legally obligated to go to some place every day for 8 hours. It is an infringement on our freedom that other people refuse to do their social responsibility in keeping everybody else around them safe. The Supreme Court has ruled on this. The freedom to live in a world without plague supersedes the individual right to decide whether or not they want to wear a mask. The Supreme Court decided this over 100 years ago. It's applicable today. Your freedom stops when your actions adversely affect everybody else. I'm obligated to go to the high school every day, Monday to Friday, from 8:15 to 3:30. And without this mask mandate, I could get infected by COVID by somebody who refuses to wear a mask. Mind you, these masks, the reason they exist, they're not gas masks. They're not supposed to filter out what you're breathing in. It's supposed to keep in what you're breathing out from spreading all over the place. So if I were infected with COVID, theoretically, and I were not wearing a mask, I would be spreading it to all of you guys. Multiply that by an order of magnitude greater number, and you would see that in the high school. I just really am not all that comfortable with a mask optional policy inside of some place I am legally obligated to be in. I do ask that you reconsider this policy of making making masks optional, getting rid of contact tracing, things of that nature. Because, mind you, we're obligated to be there. We're not done yet with this pandemic. But yeah. That's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Amy Hodgkins.
Hello. First, I would like to applaud all of you for your reversal on the mask mandate. I appreciate that for my children. I appreciate that for staff and teachers. I think that having the option to have a mask is freedom. I think that the fact that we live in America where we can freely buy what we want, wear what we want, do what we want by the freedom of choice. We should have a right whether we put a mask on our face or a mask on our children. Over the last 2 years, we have faced unimaginable. I'm sorry, I do have to read some of this because I'm very passionate this evening. Unimaginable hurdles as a community. Our families, our teachers, we all have. Whether we chose to send our kids to school or keep them home, whether we chose to put a mask on them or to not mask them. My daughter she had a speech delay. And so she's pre-COVID in her speech delay. RCS, I am in the Crestdale community. I'm very, very proud of my Crestdale community. And they have done imaginable, leaps and bounds to correct her speech delay. Luckily, my son, who's never stepped foot yet in your school without a mask on, doesn't have a speech delay. However, I have had concerns how can a kindergarten teacher teach him vowels? How can a kindergarten teacher teach him sounds without him being able to see her or his mouth? We literally have to think about our children's education. We have to think about respect for others. I respect any person that wears a mask. I absolutely do. I think any safety measures we choose, whether we choose to buckle our seatbelt or not, whether we choose to put our kids in a car seat or not, that is our choice of safety. If you choose to wear a mask, I respect you to the fullest. But I wish in return, as a parent, that you respect me if I don't want a mask on my child because I want my child to be able to smile and to giggle. Friday was kind of a rough day. We waited and we waited to hear what we were going to do with the mask mandate. And finally we heard, our children are not going to have to wear a mask on Tuesday. And I asked my daughter, I said, what are you most excited about? And she said, I cannot wait to see Lillian, which is her best friend, her teeth. She hadn't seen her teeth. She wanted to see her teeth. I mean, that is so sweet and so innocent. And when I asked my son, now my daughter, I'll just be honest, she does not wear her mask correctly. She walks into school with it under her nose. That is not protecting her. That is not going. I have been in the medical field. It is not going to protect her. She walks in, whether she gets corrected, I am not going to say whether she does or she doesn't. But my son, that is strapped to his face nonstop. He will not. He will tell Ella to put it up there. That little kid, he looked at me and he said, I said, what are you most excited? He said, I can't wait to breathe. That is a little boy, he's 6 years old, who at school vomited in his mask, did not pull it down. I had to clean vomit out of his ears. I was ashamed as a parent that he had to experience that because we've all been little. We know what it's like to vomit. You don't have time. You don't have time to run. You don't have time to do anything. When you're little, it just comes out wherever it is. And that little boy vomited behind a mask. I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for the teachers. I feel sorry for the people who had to clean him up. And you know what? I feel sorry for my husband and I who had to come and pick him up, ashamed, crying, because he had a mask on his face. However, it could still be a choice as a parent, whether you put that mask on or you don't. I truly have the utmost respect for each and every one of you sitting there. But this is America. We have freedom of choice for every single thing we do. And I beg you, I beg you, as a mother, to please let us have that choice when they walk into RCS, whether they put a mask on or not. And I'm going to tell you right here, right now, my family, me, no one will ever make fun. They will never say anything about anybody that has a mask on their face because that is your personal choice. And that is your medical freedom. If you choose to do that and you think that that is going to keep you healthy, I support you. But I beg you, if I am going to give my child care, if I'm going to take care of them, if they get sick, to please, absolutely please let me have the option to not send them to school with a mask. And you know what? If they have a cough, if they're sick, and you know what? I keep them home. That's keeping everybody safe. And I want that choice too. Let's say that. Let's say that as a community. If your child is sick, please keep them home. I beg you to keep them home. If not, send them home. But please do not make me strap a face muzzle on my child. Please let them smile. Please let them laugh. Please let them be able to see their teacher's mask. If their teacher wants to be seen, if their teacher wants to wear a mask, I'm fine with that as well. But please, please let them be able to express their feelings. Please let them be able to speak freely. And I beg that of you as a parent that loves the Richmond Community School System.
Thank you for speaking. I will open the floor if anyone else was missed or make sure everyone had an opportunity. All right. Oh, of course.
I'm Trey Ronnie. I teach at Richmond High School. I wasn't planning to speak, but I did want to, because it wasn't addressed, I did want to speak to the fact that the day, well, I guess it was yesterday, when we came back and masks were optional, I had multiple students in each class who now were double masking. So I asked some of them, you know, hey, why'd you change? And they told me about their family members. You know, they told me about people that they love who are at higher risk. So I just wanted to emphasize that, you know, like Jaime said, it's legally mandated for them to be there, and they don't really have an option. I mean, we took away the virtual option. You know, they have to be sitting there next to other people who may not be masking. I have multiple students in each classroom. I have colleagues who also are immune compromised in one way or another, and then they don't really have many options either. Regardless of the decision that is made tonight, I hope that we do think of ways to protect those people who are most vulnerable. You know, it's one thing for us, like myself, being relatively young and healthy, you know, to make these choices for ourselves. But I think we really need to be thinking about the least among us, those who are most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you.
I applaud those that students. My name is James Basin, been married for 31 years, have 5 kids in all 3 schools in Richmond. Moved from Westchester, Ohio, been there almost 20 years total. I've been intimately involved in healthcare and in a COVID clinic in the Dayton area. My wife and I don't always see eye to eye. One thing that we do agree on is freedoms. When it was mandated to wear masks, we wore masks. Now that it's optional, the preponderance of evidence, you're going to have to prove to us if you vote against the option that the state is giving. We were talking the same thing over the weekend about the kids having their freedoms to wear a mask or not. And then on Monday, we get an auto-generated call saying, or Sunday, whatever it was, that you will wear masks. And we'll have this discussion. Then it was reversed, and we were excited again. So we've been riding a roller coaster. I do respect those that have autoimmune compromises. And someone mentioned double masking. That's been recommended off and on this entire time. So see a student double masking, if they feel and their parents feel it's the secure thing to do it. As mentioned many times, those that want to wear masks have the freedom to wear masks. Send your kids to school with masks on. Everyone loves their kids. Put the mask on if you want to wear a mask. If you feel safe, wear a mask. But what about those that don't? What about those that are having issues physically with wearing masks? What about those that are having issues emotionally, mentally, and socially with wearing masks? I mentioned I have kids at all three schools, based in three at the high school, one at the middle school, one at the elementary school. Which elementary school? What? Charles. Kate, fourth grader. So we run the gamut with our family. We have 5, 6 kids out of the house, 5 are married with grandkids. We run the gamut. I've been vaccinated. And I've had issues with COVID. I had COVID. And the evidence has gone like this, right? I had COVID in November of 2020. I still have long COVID issues. I don't have my taste back completely. I don't have my smell back completely. But when I got my vaccine in January and February of 2020, I had issues with that too. And they were saying, go ahead and get your vaccine. I work amongst doctors. Like I said, I'm intimately involved in the COVID clinic at a healthcare facility in the Dayton area. And I had issues with all of it. I had my yearly influenza shot in October and I went downhill. I have it every year, never had an issue. I went downhill for about 3 weeks. Come to find out it's long COVID issues. And that flu shot exacerbated the long COVID issues that I had. I got my vaccine too early. But at the time, the evidence said, get it as soon as you can. Now it's 90 days after you have COVID that you get the vaccine. I had Moderna 1 and 2. I haven't been able to take the booster because of the long COVID issues. So it's gone everywhere. The data, the research. But when the state lifted the mandate, and now it's optional, that should reflect in our schools. That it's optional. And if you're going to vote against the state, you need to give us preponderance of evidence on why you're doing that. Thank you.
My name's John Michael. We've met several times in this forum, and I appreciate what the doctor said to every one of you. We have been against this mask mandate since the first day of school when you made it a policy. And since then, we have seen nothing but a series of wrong decisions during this past winter with the mask policy. So I'm here to remind you all, most of you, that you've been voted in. And if you continue to make these wrong decisions, we're prepared to vote you out. Thank you.
Anyone else? Would you like to speak, young ladies?
Yeah.
As a student who has,
Can you tell us your name and what school you go to?
my name is Hayden Martin, and I am from Hibbard.
You said Haley?
Haven.
Haley.
As a student who's had to wear masks since the first day of school, every single day, whenever I walk in with a mask, I just don't breathe. I heard that we were going to be lifting the mask mandate on Tuesday, and I was bouncing off walls with excitement because it's really just a relief to be able to walk into school and be able to see my teacher's face and my principal's face and my friend's face. Because some people at my school, I don't see their face at all, and it's kind of hard to put the picture together when you're trying to talk. When our teacher talks, it sounds kind of muffled, and sometimes I can't really understand the instructions of our work projects, and I can't understand which was brain, and that's kind of my brain stuff. I just want the mask mandate to stay lifted and be optional so that I can breathe in school.
I think we've had plenty of comment at this point.
John,
Yes, sir.
comment?
Huh?
Just from my seat, may I make a comment?
I mean, we'll get the comments after we get a motion, but if you would like to say something before, feel free.
I won't speak as a board member. I'll speak as just as a police officer, member of this community. And if you want me to go to the podium, I'll do that.
Sure.
Okay. Greetings. My name is Aaron Stevens. I'm a member of the Richmond Police Department, citizen of Richmond. I have two children who graduated from Richmond High School. I have a daughter who is an administrator at her own college, and a son who works here in the community. I have family members who are still students and family members of Richmond Community Schools. I'm sitting here tonight and I have a mask on, and the reason I'm wearing my mask is because several months ago I had a respiratory infection, and I'm wearing this mask because the cough continues to come back from time to time, and for the safety of everyone sitting around me, I think it's very prudent of me to wear this mask for your protection. At the same time, as a police officer, I have a directive that when I'm in the building or around people in the community, I need to wear the mask. Not, again, for their safety, but specifically for mine as well. I look forward to the day when, through options or anything else, that I don't have to wear this mask for any reason whatsoever. Because specifically in my profession, my voice says a lot of things, my eyes speak words, but when you see the totality of the expressions of my face with my eyes, it gives a different impression on exactly what I'm saying. A teacher in a classroom or a student in a classroom, I do believe, or a parent or anyone else who has the opportunity to speak one-on-one with someone with the eyes, the heart, the mouth, and especially the expressions of their face, it goes to say a lot more than just my eyes and my words, because you don't understand the smile on my face. You don't understand when my teeth are showing. You don't understand that I'm agreeing with you, or maybe feel a little bit discomforted with something that you say. I look forward to the day when we here in our community, and as a police officer, as a grandparent, and also as a citizen of our nation, we'll be able to say that whether we choose to wear a mask or not wear a mask, that we do so with the thoughts of our own personal safety, but the safety of others. But let us get back to the point where, with or without mask, we do not fail to let down just for a moment and let you into our hearts and into our lives with saying, I appreciate you, I respect you, I'm going to do what's best for me, and I'm going to do what's best for you. So I'm going to mask up again right now, and if this board should choose to accept the no mask policy, I'm going to be supportive of it, and I'm going to be more than happy to take my mask off at that point. So,
I'd be happy to entertain a motion on the return to in-person learning plan.
I'll make it up.
Motion by Jeff Slifer,
I'll second.
second by Brad Walton. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to public commentary. This is Claypool.
Okay, we have Regina Clever.
Okay, I'm here I have a question. Regina Clever, I have a daughter currently at the high school. One's graduate, she's a lead educator. She's currently a substitute in your building. Gymnastics. I want to know what the status of athletics is. I've seen so many jobs posted for athletics. I'm just like,
Yet I still don't see a gymnastics coach posted. And I know your coach has resigned at the end of the season. I know how hard they are to find. I had to find one before for a gym that is now shut down. My daughter was going to do gymnastics this year as a freshman. She opted not to because those girls are traveling out of town, and that makes it hard to be a student. It really does. So I want to know what's going on with athletics in general and more the gymnastics team.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to our consent items. Dr. Wright?
President Weber and trustees, I ask for consent for items 5.01 through 5.07, as well as the addendum to the annual report as presented.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion. That we accept the consent items, but I didn't know we might also, but after this, let them know that we can take a small break if they want to leave. They don't have to stay for the whole meeting. But I'll make the motion to accept the consent items as presented.
Motion by Jeff Schleifer, second by Brad Walton. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 6, public hearing. I will suspend the meeting of the Board of School Trustees and declare the public hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to offer the public an opportunity for comments and questions regarding the proposed new contract for the superintendent. We'll give them a moment.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
For the record, I would like to indicate that we do have a publisher's affidavit. I have a copy of the publication, and the notice of the public hearing was duly advertised in the palladium item on February 10th, 2022. So this meeting is timely.
Thank you. Perhaps. Moving on, if anyone would like to speak on the superintendent contract, happy to hear from you. Seeing no comments, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Motion by Aaron Stevens.
Second.
Second by Jeff Schleifer. And then that's that.
That's it. I was just laughing. I'm sorry that we put the horns in.
Just whether you don't mind, before we move on, I just definitely would like to thank our trustees for the trust and confidence and faith that you have in me as your school superintendent. But as I mentioned before, and as I'll continue to say, this definitely is a collective with our central office leadership team, our building level leaders, our teacher leaders, amazing staff, students, and the stakeholders who have been represented throughout the course of this year. Everyone just collectively have done a tremendous job. And we understand and know that with our profession and with the challenges that come with it, our center focus remains and will always be on the selfless service of students. And so, in serving them, we make sure at the district level that our instructional teachers have the resources they need. So I'm just excited, elated, and definitely will stay the task. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. I would just simply add, for those that didn't read the contract, the board has extended Dr. Wright's contract to, I think, 3 additional years, I believe. Is that correct?
That is the, you have not done it so yet, so you will not vote on it until March 16th.
So at our next
that would be the effect of the advertised supplement.
We've been working extensively on strategic planning and long-term goals, and felt that it's appropriate to, we have yet to see the fruits of that work, that Dr. Wright has definitely been a leader, and we've continued to thank him and wanted to show how committed we are to the process. So, Thank you, Dr. Rick.
Thank you, sir.
And I might add, this didn't cost us any money.
I know we're on record, so I can't say what I typically say. And plus, my wife would be able to play back. But as long as we cover her expenses, I do it for free.
We do have that on. All right. But yeah, thank you. And I know it's, I know people don't see all the work that goes on, but there is been a great deal of progress made, and we're really heading in the right direction. So thank you very much. Moving on to action items, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that our Chief Financial Officer, Mrs. Karen Scout, come before us for action items 7.01 as well as 7.02.
Good evening. Tonight before you, we have donations for the month of February. The donations, $7,929. We primarily received donations at the high school level. There's a number of sports teams that you'll notice received donations, as well as the music department. We'd also like to thank Hill's Pet Nutrition for donating water bottles at Dale Elementary, and also to numerous donors for the RHS Doublet program. The BPA, the Business Professionals of America, also received a donation from the PIT Fund. So tonight, it's my recommendation that we approve donations totaling $7,929.
Thank you, Mrs. Scout. Happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve the donations as presented.
Motion by Aaron Stevens.
I'll second. Second
by Keith Morey. Any questions or comments?
I guess a comment would just be thank you. And I often see these lists and see, educators, retired educators or past staff members or current staff members, along with all the community businesses that support us. So thank you.
Agreed. Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, I again ask that Mrs. Scout come before us to seek approval for action item 7.02, the request to advertise notice for bids.
Okay, tonight before you is a request to advertise for facade and roof work at Richmond High School. This is primarily on the tower area at the high school. As was provided in your update, the information on specifications and details will be published as soon as they are available. We will provide more information back to the board on that date as soon as we know it. The notice will be published 2 times in the Palladium item, at least 7 days apart. This project, if completed in full, will need to be bid, and that is the rationale for the request tonight. It is of a time-sensitive nature, and we needed to bring that to you as soon as possible. That's why the process is just a little bit different than normal tonight.
Thank you. Happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve action item 7.02, request to advertise notice for bids for the RHS tower roof and facade work.
Motion by Kristen Brunton.
I'll second.
Second by Keith Morey. Any questions or comments? I just have one question. I didn't get this submitted ahead of time, but are the projects still able to be separated, or is it combined?
They are able to be separated. And that's part of what we need to know. The preference is to do them together and to bid them as one project. We would provide alternates, I'm sure, on the each piece so that it can be separated if bids come in a little bit farther over than what we expect. However, it does need done in a pretty severe way. And so the recommended plan is to complete the project in full, which would require an additional appropriation by the board for that specific purpose. And we would start that process at the next board meeting, or
April. Either way, we can still meet all the timelines necessary, but the recommendation would be to complete the project in school.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Dr. Wright?
President Webber, trustees, I ask that Assistant Superintendent Jennifer O'Brien rejoin the conversation to seek approval for action item 7.03.
Good evening. Tonight I bring to you a request for an overnight field trip. This is sponsored by Kirsten Archer-Brenner, who is a teacher at the high school. And this is for the AVP Service Learning Facilitators Conference. AVP stands for Alternatives to Violence Project. There is no cost to the students. It's being sponsored by the local nonprofit AVP Indiana. They'll be leaving after school on the last day of school, and then will return on May the 30th. They're going to be staying at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. For this program. So tonight I ask the board to approve the overnight request.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien.
I'll move that we approve the overnight request.
Motion by Keith Moore,
Second.
second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments?
I think it's a great opportunity, and it's fantastic that they can go and know that it's being covered. Great opportunity for students, and appreciate Archer being willing to lead that charge and take them.
Fantastic.
John,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if Ms. O'Brien can, someone would you give the public just a little bit background on the AVP program? I know, but if it's possible.
Tell us what you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, the alternative violence, I know that it is something that I know we're doing here, but also around Indiana and all, and it's a discussion with students and everything, students, people in communities, to have an open discussion in regard to options that will basically sway them away from violence. It's that in a nutshell is what it is. Okay. It's a little bit broader than that, but I think it's a great opportunity, especially when the students come back and it generates more discussion here locally, not only amongst their peers, but also with their families within the community. You see all the negatives that are going on in communities around us, Indianapolis specifically, and everything else. If we can train up a child when they're young and let them realize what their options are instead of turning to violent means, then Lord willing, it never results in what we're seeing in some of the larger communities around us. So I think this is a seed that's well worth being planted.
Thank you. Were you involved when when it was initiated?
I was not personally involved, but I threw out some ideas to some of the people who were involved.
Thank you.
I think we assume in past practice you've been involved in such things as the DARE program through Richmond Schools.
Mhm.
I was a student. I thanked Officer French time and again for his service there at C.R. Richardson back in the 80s, when he shows the difference between a healthy lung and a smoker's lung. It's been mentally tattooed in my head since I was this tall. The challenge is I'm still that tall. I'm teasing.
But it's real.
All right. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to policy review and update. We have two policies on first reading. I would be happy to entertain a bundled motion if someone was so inclined.
I would motion that we move.
You gotta read them all first.
I've got it on my phone, my Wi-Fi is not on my computer. 801 policy 4820 student government, And 8.02, policy 4730, equal access for non-corporation sponsored student clubs and activities to second reading.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Walton and Mr. Stevens. Any questions or comments on these two policies? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving them on to second reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to board reports and discussion.
I have a couple of things.
Mr. Pfeiffer, you have the floor.
One of the processes, or one of the conversations that we've had recently is going to be geared toward the educational committee.
Working group.
The working group, sorry. I don't know.
Sorry.
When you hear me
I'll
say
just
the
keep
word
doing it.
committee, it's a working group, just remember that. Well, so one of the things that we're going to be making some changes to the Hibbert building, and we hope to have some change in place for the process started for the fall of this year. With that means we've got a narrow timeline. So what I think, well, what we were thinking as an executive committee is that we would like to get this running, get this going. So we could turn it over to the educational committee with specific charges. You know, one of the goals that we should have that we're working on developing is when our committees or working groups, sorry, have projects or tasks that they want to look at, that we want to make sure that we're very specific in the charge of that committee at the time, the working group at the time. It wouldn't do any of us any good to have a working group and the administrators and the board members initially meet and we look at each other like, okay, what's the purpose? What are we doing? You know, as we have talked over the last several board meetings at different times, we're trying to help the communication in the system. We're trying to help the communication amongst the board members, and we're trying to help so we don't get involved. I can remember when we were years ago when we were talking about redistricting and closing buildings, and the amount of information and meetings involved for the board members was a pretty big demand. So this allows the board members that are on those working groups to dive into it a little bit deeper and be involved in the conversations. So as we move forward, there's no surprises with anyone. So what I did was, and I'm not sure if anyone had a chance to read their email or not, but I sent this morning documents out with two potential charges that the board will agree upon, that we will go to the educational committee and say, here is your charge, or here's what we want you to investigate. What I don't want to do is, at this point, I don't think it's fair that we should dictate what everything is, but I think we should set the charge, some direction, so then we can put the members on the educational working group that will help us complete that charge. The two things that we have, the problem is we have about 10 things that we need to do at the same time. So, so part of setting priorities and setting the process in place, I see two separate committee charges coming for the Hibbert building. One of which I think we would like to lean in the direction of what would it take to grow our enrollment and turn the Hibbert building into a STEAM program or a STEM program. You know, I'm not experienced enough to tell you exactly what that should look like or where it's gonna go or whether it's even gonna be 100% feasible or not. But if we look at some of the goals and some of the direction that we want to increase our enrollment. We want, especially at the Hibbert building. We want to draw in people that are not currently in our corporation. So as hopefully we can build our enrollment and we don't have to worry about what actions have to take place if we go into a declining enrollment. So that's one of the charges I think as a board that we need to discuss. And part of the other one is looking at possibly growing the Logos Lab program and or the GT program in our system. So right now we're pretty narrowly defined in what that criteria is. So there's been some discussion or some thoughts that what would it be like if we relooked at our domains and maybe opened it up a little bit more. And so that's just some of the processes or thoughts that we've been going through. One of the things that I want to make sure that everyone understands is these are two independent programs or program ideas. One is not meant to replace the other. I'm not saying they couldn't coexist and use some of their same resources, but I do feel like if this is something that we're really going to consider, we really need to get some traction going and get some processes going, and at least be on the same sheet as we move forward. So I had sent all the board members and the superintendent this morning a copy of the results of their meeting. We met with the building principal and a couple of other people as well. So I have copies here if you would like to see them tonight. But my thought was when I sent them out this morning is hopefully you had a chance to view them or review them and look at them, because I would like to be able to come to some kind of consensus from the board level that maybe by the end of the week that we could then have a discussion and maybe the first of next week get it turned over to the education committee to start doing the work. They'll be the ones to determine the members. They'll be the ones to determine the processes they're going to go through. The goal is for the committee to do regular updates with the board. And I think one of the things that's really fantastic is Kim is involved in all of those meetings. So she does a great job of taking the notes. So she can keep all the board members kind of in the loop. There are 3 board members that are part of the educational committee now. That's Aaron, Kristen, and Heath. So they're not smiling at me right now because their workload is going to increase. But anyway, I just want to get it started. I want to get it moving because there's a lot of things that have to take place if we really are looking at something to start this in the fall. So did anybody have any questions or concerns on the documents that I sent to you, or did you have anything you want to discuss, or you want to think about it and get back to us to me by the end of the week? I guess I'll take the lead for it right now. I'm just throwing it out there, and I do have copies if you would like to have a copy tonight, but it's in your emails. So that's the first thing I have for board business. I do have a second.
I just add, it was just a way to try to not make any decisions, but get the ball rolling and kind of elevate it to the level of importance teams can require. Timeline is pretty short, so I don't think anyone has any set in stone motions, but I mean, how we serve our existing students, how we attract students to the district, those are all, I think, elements. And, I think it's would be a valued addition to RCS.
in the conversations that we've had in the education working group up to now.
Committee?
Nope, working group. I just think I see value in both of those conversations, but with the size of the task in the STEAM piece, I think we say, hey, we know we want to look at the high ability stuff, but we don't have the bandwidth to do that right now with all that we're trying to accomplish on the other side. So I think put that off to the side and say, okay, let's get this rolling, and then we can start looking at that when we have some more time. I just think our focus should be on that STEAM piece, if that's where we're going, STEM piece, and really focus on that right now to determine what we're doing. If our timeline is to have something in place by August, that needs to be where all of our attention is.
I think one of the discussions I was involved with, I can't remember everybody that was involved in the discussion, but this is something that normally I could see this being a 2-year project or a 3-year project getting to, and that doesn't mean it's done. I mean, it's always going to be a project that is always going to have to be looked at and revised and changed. And I think, so I don't think there's anyone that believes that this will open up in the fall at 100%, or even 75% or 60%. But I think if we look at it, and I think we can do them all parallel, because I think there'll be some different things involved with the identity and the domains as far as the gifted program goes, because it basically is already in the group that we have. We're only looking at creativity. The reason why that is important is we're really right now almost at the point that you're looking at the testing and they're looking at the different criteria to select the students into that program. So, but I think one of the messages that we need to get across is going to be a skeleton. It's going to be, in the program that I could see that we would be ready for in the fall would be a skeleton part of the program. But the things that would excite me is if the committee decides to move forward and recommending moving into to the board to move into the STEAM environment, then we need to bring some outside resources in, some experts. We need to bring in, people that could help us develop that program. And I'm not saying we don't have the talent within, but I think sometimes if we could build with people or maybe some consultants that have had that experience that could help us accelerate the move.
Especially on timetable.
Yeah, so.
And just to follow up on Keith, I hear exactly what you're saying, and our resources are limited, but I think it's also important that we, show commitment to the existing Logos program. And there are some low-hanging fruit there that they can, I think, some small pieces. Exactly. And so if the committee says this, if that's the recommendation from the working group, that maybe only a few pieces of the Logos project are done immediately and the rest kind of wait, that would be fine. But I think it's important that program knows it's supported and that the part of the vision of the RCS that the board has. And so I'd hate to just shelve any improvements to Logos at this point. But I agree, the STEAM side, and that's where I think more you'll see it. I would anticipate there would be some expert assistance via consultant or other personnel in that project, just because it is so massive.
The problem is we have to get it past us so we can get it out. And there needs to be a lot of conversations with a lot of other people. I mean, all the staff needs to have conversations. The parents need to have conversations. I mean, there's a lot of conversations that need to start taking place outside of the 6 or 7 of us. And if we don't have something that goes out and says we're moving forward with this, then we need to start developing a plan and start working towards it, then we'll be sitting here 2 months from now, the same thing, which we've kind of been dragging our feet for a while anyway.
Your second point, Mr. Schleifer.
I'm getting off the hook easy, aren't I? The second one is it may be a little touchy subject, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But we had several people tonight stand up and speak about the roller coaster that they've been on with the mask policy, whether you're masked or you're non-masked, and the communication from the school system on how we changed things, how we did this, how we didn't do that. So I'm going to speak only for myself, because I don't want anyone else to get in trouble for what I say. But I have believed from the beginning in the right for the individuals to have choice. I sometimes gave up that thought for the betterment of the group. So I think the public needs to understand that it's easy to stand out there and shout, because we're in a position that we're going to make half the people happy and we're going to make half the people upset. So we're all just trying to do the best that we can do. I've fully supported what we've done to this point. And I think now is also the time to go to mask optional. But I also think as a board, as administration, we have so many different levels of government and so many different levels of authority that we have to deal with. You can take it as high as you want. You start at the president, you can go to the state government, you can go to the CDC, you can go to the Indiana Department of Health, then you can go to the city mayor, then you can go to the local health department, then you can go to the board, the superintendent. The part of the reason why it seemed a little clunky in the last week is through no intent to disrespect anybody or any person or any group. By the time we get done dealing with the filtering of all the different levels of government and all the different levels of authority that I just discussed, and many more that I'm sure I'm forgetting, we as a board had some communication, through an email chain or a text that talks about, should we do it? What should we do? How should we move forward with our mask policies? And I'm sorry that it caused such a havoc in the community for the last 5-6 days, but we were trying to make everybody happy. We try to hear everybody. We try to give everybody their opinion. Well, in the excitement, and quite frankly, to a point of being tired of even discussing and talking about it, we left one body out that we should have communicated with better, that we did not, and that was the Teachers Association, the Richmond Education Association. And that's the reason why we recanted from going from mask optional to mask reinstated until we had a board meeting. There's some statute that talks about the requirements for discussion to take place with teachers. I personally, whether it really doesn't matter what I think about that, other than the fact that we've always wanted to communicate with our staff. We've always tried to show respect to our staff. So whether I agree or disagree that this was an item that was what is termed discussable, I don't even, we don't need to get into the details of that. But what I want the public to understand is, and the staff, what I want them to understand is, by the time we got through all these other levels of authority, we may have jumped the gun, but at the same time, no disrespect was meant to any group. We were willing to hold back our mask optional for 2 days to give them the right to have a discussion. So I just felt like that I heard a lot of comments since last Friday. And I think there's a lot of things out there that people don't understand. I shouldn't say don't understand, but maybe don't always appreciate the view from everybody's perspective. So I just really felt like I needed to explain that. It was no disrespect intended for anyone, and we sure don't want to confuse our community and make it act like we don't know what we're doing. So I'll get off my soapbox.
I appreciate that, Jeff. I think the central office folks, I mean, the state essentially lifted the incentives for masking. And when school districts around the state saw that, they took it as an opportunity to then go mask optional, including the county, I believe, same day, some of our county schools. And so I think when we, saw that trend, and you look at the data for the county and the state, I think it seemed like a reasonable discussion to have. I think the whether it's discussable with the REA or not, I think is open for debate somewhat. I wish Mr. Cross was still here. But in an effort to try to make sure all parties were contacted, I think we did the right thing and the proper thing. I am sorry for the confusion it caused, but appreciate to the community for staying the course and being with us. So,
and one more point. Kudos to the Richmond Education Association, because Tuesday morning, they agreed to go ahead and let us move forward with it being optional, pending a future discussion and the board discussion tonight. So I think at some point they also realized that it was getting to a point that it went maybe further than what it should have. So, but I wanted to also point out that because of the association, we were able to go ahead and move forward Tuesday morning, mask optional. So.
I just on the larger note of our return to school plans that we've spent 2 years dealing with. I just want to say how, while very frustrating over the last 3 to 4 days, how proud I have been of our board for being, while of varying opinions, as you mentioned earlier, for being of one voice and supportive of the central office and the will of what we've said from the beginning. We would follow the advice of the professionals. I feel like this change has continued in that practice, and they've said, okay, we're at a point now where we don't have to do that. I just I want to appreciate all of us, because there have been boards throughout this state who have been very split, lots of contention, and I know there have been different opinions on this board, but as a whole, we have come together and we have been supportive of what was best for students and how to best keep students in the building and healthy. So bravo to all of
so we can
you.
applaud ourselves.
Well, I think it's important to note that has not been something that has happened everywhere else. And I'm proud of us for being willing to come together despite varied opinions on the topic and saying, okay, but what is best for our kids? What's the best way to keep them safe? So well done, all of you. Appreciate it.
Right. Anyone else?
John?
Yes, sir.
If this is board discussion and reports, I wanted to bring up the fact
going away from masks and all those things. There was a House Bill 1072, which was in regards to shared local tax dollars to be filtered to charter schools. It currently is dead in the Senate. And that's a big plus for public education because it would have taken away local tax dollars from public education and caused it to be split amongst charter schools and private schools. So right now it is dead in the Senate. So I want to bring that up.
Thank you.
And I haven't heard today, but there was supposed to be discussion and movement on 1134 of
Moved to
you.
the full Senate.
It's what?
It moved to the full Senate. So it's out of committee.
Okay, so it's out of committee and it is moved forward. It's been pared down, I'm aware again, but yeah, still there, still not great, in my opinion.
All right, anything else for board reports and discussion? All right, moving on to item 11, preview of upcoming meeting and events.
President Weber, trustees, our next scheduled school board meeting is Wednesday, March 16th. Of course, with March, we celebrate spring recess or spring break. And so as a result, we do indeed just have the one school board meeting Wednesday, March 16th, which again is the next time we convene. There will be several events that occur prior to that meeting, one being the National Honor Society, and several others that Mrs. Hazelbaker will soon share with us. And on that date, we'll, of course, celebrate that many more.
Are you inviting her to the podium?
Yes, and at this time, I'd love for Mrs. Hazelbaker to come up and join us.
Can we, before, I apologize, but I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but can you remind me of your name?
Regina Clever.
Regina Cliver? Clever. Okay, I didn't. Gotcha.
No way.
Can I just ask that we get some information so that we can have some?
I think we're already on it, Mrs. Stewart.
I think there are several emails with my name all over it.
Wonderful. It would be fantastic if we can.
Consistent.
I appreciate that, but it would be good to have some answers, and I so that we can have a conversation about that. Typically, we do not respond to public commentary, but
It's concerned because I see the junior walk this night. I hadn't seen the job posted yet. I know how long it takes to get a coach because it took during the club season when we were in club before they closed. It took us 8 months to find a coach.
right. So that's, I guess, what I was asking. It'd be nice for Miss Clever, but also for the public if we could.
You're going to Connersville if that's the case because they have an in-town team.
Right.
I work there and we're actually can look to go that direction.
So it would just be nice if at the next meeting we could have a little bit of information about that for the public as well. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
And just memorial so that the entire board as well as our patrons understand. Ms. Clever and I have had a wonderful conversation and meeting about the issue, and also she has, as she mentioned, she is very informed, very educated, and most importantly, very willing to do what it takes. And
I need to volunteer in the sectionals. I volunteered to be in play. They need that stuff. I'm going to be a coach on the circuit next year because they need officials or they can't have the sport.
Ms. Clever's been providing options for some time now. We definitely are going to.
Thanks for your advocacy. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, I just wanted to give some additional upcoming events. Of course, the National Honor Society on Monday, February 28th. All RHS juniors will also be taking the SAT test on May 2nd. And then, I know, right? And then the Richmond High School Red Devil Players Drama Club will be presenting Godspell Junior on Friday, March 11th at 7:30 and Sunday, March 13th at 2 p.m. at Dennis Middle School. And the cost is $10 per person. Go ahead and move forward with the bell ringer.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Richmond, talking about gymnastics, Richmond High School senior Liz Ruger, she was named the NCC champion on the vault, bars, beam, floor, and all around. She had a season high tallying score of 37.8. And then some Richmond High School juniors and seniors attended the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce Annual Career Exploration Fair. And lastly, on February 11th, we had several future Red Devils that were highlighted at our basketball game. Bailey Van Winkle of Charles, Alea Stevenson from Crestdale, Maya Paris Starr, Ducati Dillard from Vale, Carter J. Robinson from Westview, Trace Lewis from Hibbard, and Allison Worth from Test.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Our bell rang.
Yes. No, Ms. Hazelbaker did a tremendous job.
Yes. Anything else for the good of the cause? Scalp, you okay? All right. Meeting adjourned.